like to mention certain things. In chapter 1, page 1, you will see in section 1 by 1, with the recognition of fundamental human rights as basic, with laws purportedly made to protect such rights and with guidance in the Constitution about the nation's social goal, one should assume that it is time enough now for the Indian people to live in an established, stable, egalitarian society, but the truth is far from it. So this is something which must be made note of. And then they said that even though the laws are there to protect the rights of the individuals and the society, the law is not always accessible to all classes of people. That is why towards the end of page 1 and then 2, they write, this is particularly true of the peasant population, who are even now, by and large, unorganized, looking at the country, has treated these as law and order problems and used the repressive machinery of the state to silence the masses, promoting by such process, wittingly or unwittingly, the interests of the vested land-owning and exploiting classes. This is also something we made note of. We come to page 3, towards the end. They make a comment. The public memory is short, and an issue of today is a non-issue tomorrow, which is very true. In contrast, a tribunal appointed by the people through a commission of their creation, while enjoying no official status and with no sanction behind its report, reports to the people who, we assure, will make better use of the report than the government does of an official report. The latter dies a natural death if it offends the susceptibility of the government, and we know all about it. That is where the rationale of this report is to be taken note of. After we appointed, because formally we have to appoint them to form the tribunal, I wrote a letter both to Mr. Koti and to Mr. Mehta, and after that they say, we set ourselves to the task chalking out a line which we felt was appropriate to the situation, which means we trust nothing on them, and why should they accept that? And realizing that in this we are perhaps setting the precedent for other tribunals to be similarly constituted by the Indian Human Rights Commission to follow. And it is very, very encouraging for all of us to know that this will continue. This is a continuing process. And then I'd like to go to page number 8, talking about the conflict. They say this phenomenon of conflict is not confined to our wall, as I said before, but is common to the state as a whole. And this is in the middle of page 8. Then we come to page 15. It's all about, but I would like you to read everything, but I give you the salient features. The conclusion arrived at after having said something about things. Page 15, 1 by 9. We reiterate that we do not wish to find on the ownership of this land one way or the other. We only state, as a matter of fact, that no document which would satisfy, no document with them couldn't be shown to them. And we also noted that a serious dispute really commenced in 1985 when the preventive provision of the Criminal Procedure Code seems to have been set in motion against the 9 families occupying the disputed land, etc., etc., etc. And then it is all about the background, what set them thinking about the whole thing. Then we come to chapter 2, page 20 to 24, as given to them by Mr. Mrinal, the president of Mazdoor Kisan Sangram Samiti. This is how they started. It is from page 20 to 24, section 2 and 3. We come to page 24. Two by 4. I'd like to read out to you something. During the correspondence which took place between the tribunal and the government of Bihar, an impression was created that the government of Bihar would cooperate with the inquiry conducted by this tribunal. However, unfortunately, no such cooperation was available. We would have very much liked and appreciated if the government agencies had appeared before us and put before us the government version and the documents in support thereof to enable us to test the version of the other side in a more positive and rigorous manner. However, even in the absence of the appearance of any representative of the government to put forward the government point of view, we have been able to obtain the government version of the whole incident, mainly from important and undisputed documents. And in this connection, I'd like to tell you, in February, I happened to meet, I ran into Mr. Krishna Iyer, who was also in Moscow in February. So, and he, as you all know, he is the president of the tribunal. So I asked him about it. He said, I have written to the Bihar government as the president of the tribunal, and I haven't got any reply whatsoever. I said, before leaving India, I saw in Times of India that the government of India and the government of Bihar will send their representatives before the committee. And he said, yes, I also heard that, but I never got any reply whatsoever. So from the tribunal's point of view, tribunal did everything to see that they are available, so that they could have a very balanced judgment. But even then, they could catch hold of the documents, which I am coming to later. Then could we go to 2 by 5? There, the counter affidavit of the Under Secretary, Sri B.K. Singh, that is there. It deals with that. The counter affidavit of the Under Secretary, Sri B.K. Singh. And then you will get everything about what he says. And then on page 28, section 2.6, 2 by 6, the FIR given by Sri T.N. Ojha, perhaps the police officer. Neither of these two statements, in neither of these two statements is there any mention of the meeting at Gandhi Library compound where the massacre took place. Neither in this, the counter affidavit of the Under Secretary Sri B.K. Singh, nor in the FIR filed by T.N. Ojha, there was no reference to the Gandhi Library compound. Absolutely, as if nothing happened there. It was like that. But in page 28, section 2 by 7, you will say a subsequent statement by the same Sri Ojha, the police officer, that statement reveals that the meeting was held at Gandhi Library compound. It was perhaps due to some pressure. They couldn't hide this. They had to say it. So he said it so it is in a way a contradiction of what he said before. There was no mention of Gandhi Library compound at that time. But in the second report, in the second statement, he mentioned it. Then we come to page 31. I have nothing to say about it. It is so complete because there is no point in No, we are coming to the conclusion, but you are reading it, but it may help you to know about it. So I would like to tell you something. So in page 31, you will see a careful reading of both these documents, on the contrary, shows that a deliberate attempt is made to avoid any reference to Gandhi Library compound and to show that the riotous mob, after pulling down the wall erected by Rajaks on the disputed land, straightway went to the police station and surrounded the same, throwing stones and brickbats and threatening to destroy the same unless the arrested persons were released. It is apparent that after the investigation was taken over from him by another police officer, Sri Oja realized that in view of the fact that all dead bodies and the police and the pool of the blood were found only in the Gandhi Library compound, it would not be possible to conceal the fact that the whole incident has taken place in the compound of Gandhi Library. And in page 32, they say police was all prepared to prevent any such gathering, for Sri Oja admits in his FIR that he had been informed confidentially that MKSS was to hold a meeting at Arwal on 19th April and that its main object was to lead an attack on the land of Bajnath Rajak and to demolish the wall. In page 33-36, you will find some of the witnesses have been taken up to evidence that the story of Arwal, as we know, is not at variance with what the witnesses say. It is the same story which we know. It is the same story in page 33-36, the witnesses were examined and they say the same thing, the same story. And
could you then clarify that the witnesses' account is at variance with what?
At variance with what the witnesses say. The story, as we know, is the same which the witnesses say. Then they make a comment. After hearing all this, they make a comment about it. It is page 36, 2/11. This evidence shows that in spite of very elaborate arrangements made by the police to prevent people coming to attend the meeting called by MKSS, people did collect near the disputed wall, and that being angered by the collusive violence of the police and the landlord family of Rajaks, they pulled down the offending wall. With all their brute might, the police could not prevent the same. It is in this background of the injured ego of the armed guards of law and order that the subsequent. In page 37, we will come to it again. They refer to the guidelines of the Director General of Police, guideline to the police, given by the Director General of Police. And there is, you will find very interesting explanations, interesting definition of these people, whom they call Director General, according to the guidelines of DG, Director General of Police, who are to be called extremists, who are to be called Naxalites, who are to be called Senas and the Lal Senas. Senas built by the landlord's people and Lal Senas by the afflicted people. So, have been defined by the Director General. So this is hilarious, the way they do it. And the judges haven't forgotten to mention this. Now, this is something very important to me. Page 39, 2/14. The most disgusting aspect of the feature is that these landlord Senas are encouraged and patronized openly. And still more shocking aspect is that, as admitted publicly by the Director General of Police, the police has on occasions taken aid of some of these landlord Senas openly to curb the extremists who were agitating for the preservation of the statutory rights of the exploited class of agrarian economy. Record produced before us shows that these Senas are formed not only on caste basis, but are mostly manned by gangsters and bullies and dacoits. And then again says the police power of the state exists for crushing the poor and the exploited, and hence works openly in collusion with the exploiters. And towards the end of this page, if the state fails to, they say, the judges say, if the state fails to implement its own legislation and to protect these who are entitled to the said protection, what is the remedy? This is what the judges asked. Then in 21, should peoples go on suffering in silence, or should they protest? And what if their peaceful protest fall on deaf ears of the authorities who were found to be hands in glove with the offenders? Is there any wonder if under these circumstances the unsophisticated, illiterate and ignorant but simple masses are tempted to resort to the method which may not be legal or peaceful? And this is what two legal experts say. If the state fails to protest their legal rights, could they be dubbed as extremists and Naxalites? The moment they are out of sheer frustration resort to the method which are not legal or which are sometimes even violent. If all non-legal or illegal activities are to be identified as extremists, surely the greatest extremist this country has seen is Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, the father of this nation, who led a march to Gandhi and openly defied the prevailing laws and also gave a Quit India call in his final struggle to dislodge a tyrannical regime. For those who are oppressed and who find no legal way to get redress, it matters not in the least whether the tyrant is white or brown in the color or his skin, or whether he is a foreigner or a national. All tyrants the world over belong to the same class or species, even though they may be having their senas or on caste basis, or are sitting in the places of authority. At this point, I recall a very interesting work done by Munshi Premchand, to my mind the greatest writer in the 20th century in India. That was his last testament before he died. He called it Mahajani Shabda. He said, I can see that the white Sahabs will go, but the brown Sahabs are coming. Beware of them. He said it. That was his last testament. He calls it Mahajani Shabda. That was the last thing he wrote before he died in 1935.
Would you kindly spell that Mahajan?
Mahajani Shabda. Mahajani Shabda.
But you don't surely equate these landlords with feudal landlords with brown sahibs. I beg to differ. You don't equate these Rajaks with the
but this is what they say. This is what you know. Rajaks are not that rich. This is what
not rich. They're less progressive.
Yes. But this is what you know. What they want to say. This is they just ask these questions. They are
what they are answering is they are saying that the only alternative seems to be to reply.
That is what they say. Out of frustration, the judges never stand by that, but they say what they can do. Out of frustration, when they do it, they even become violent. When they see that nothing is being done by the
law, the statement gets qualified by the word frustrated, but the basic thing remains they are taking land on law into their own hands.
In their own hands, yeah. This is not the judges certainly do not go by that, but this is what they say, that this is the situation. If the judges have just described the situation, they haven't come to the conclusion. They haven't come to the conclusion. But this is what they say.
The conclusion that they can
incite into violence, but this is what they also feel, that this is something what is happening, something must be done about it. This is, in a way, this is to caution the custodians of law and order. This is perhaps to
take recourse to law.
No, you don't have to take them by their words, literally. This may be treated as a caution. This may be interpreted by DGP is principally responsible for wholly irresponsible. This is what they say. Then page 51, 57, the guidelines given to the police by the Director General of Police is principally responsible for wholly irresponsible, indiscriminate and unjustified. And then they say that it shows that the clan of Dyers and Dyers is not extinct. This is what they say in one of these sections. They say it. And then they go about, to make things short. I made notes of everything because I was so inspired by this, and what you are talking about, you say, now this reminded, when I was reading this, what will they do when things are like this? That reminded me of what once Romarola said. He was a pacifist, Romarola. But Romarola said once that when justice When order is injustice, disorder is the beginning of justice. Doesn't mean that one has to go about like this, one has to be very violent. But he said that when order is injustice, disorder is the beginning of justice.